Hey, how are you? Glad to see you guys this fine Wednesday. Welcome back to the weekly live news and Q&A show that we've built just for you. I'm Chris Grant, along with my phlegmatic, don't worry, it's not contagious, co-host Chris Rasick. And we've also got a special guest, the inimitable Dylan Carter. You guys are making me work hard for the adjectives this week. Today we'll chat about a few pieces of news that should be of interest to you as Amazon sellers, and of course, we will be taking your questions about anything relating to Amazon, online arbitrage, retail arbitrage, wholesale, or repricing in the waning hours of Q4. So if you have questions, make sure to drop them in the chat. Fellas, how are you this week?
I'm good. I'm good. Yeah. These are trying times, Chris.
Let's say you seem stressed.
Yeah, this is the time of year where just a simple reach and a pinch is all it takes for 30 grams of sugar and 220 calories of a Little Debbie Christmas tree to be in my face. So there's this. We're gonna go the next few weeks of an open box in the cupboard at all times. So I'm a little stressed.
These are the times that try men's souls. I totally understand.
You know, it's funny. I miss this time being a seller because it's a pure roller coaster, right? There's only so much you can do at this point in Q4, right? You're kind of just like holding on for dear life. I'm sure, doing a lot more merchant fulfilled offers and stuff like that to maximize it. On the software side, pretty much everybody goes on vacation. It's actually so annoying because we're, trying to do more stuff and everyone's like, oh yeah, hit us back in, New Year. I'm like, dude, we got a few more weeks, man. What are we doing here? So
right.
It's funny for us. It kind of slows down a little bit on that front, but we did office hours today at 2:00 and I was telling people now's the time to start thinking about what do you want 2025 to look like? And what are you going to be doing? I mean, Q1 is the best time to run experiments, right? It's relatively lower risk. You can't mess up too much. And if you do, you got plenty of time before the next Q4 comes around. So honestly, I'm kind of getting excited for Q1.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I saw somebody talking and I think it was like health advice or something like that. But basically they framed it like, if you want it bad enough, you're not going to wait. You're not going to need the calendar to show 1/1/25. If you want it bad enough, you'll start now, which we've talked about in different frames. Like I love somebody who starts, a big project like that on a Wednesday. Don't wait for a convenient frame because that's just one step beyond waiting until you're ready, which we know is a bunch of BS, So I started thinking about that. It's like, okay, if you want to get in shape, start now. You don't need to wait for January 1st. There's always going to be something coming up. There's going to be a Christmas. There's going to be birthdays and Valentine's Day candy. And you're just going to keep putting it off. And it's the same thing with what you want your orange bars to look like. Like if you want it bad enough, Q4 is not the end, of the effort, of the sourcing, of what you're trying to do, like start now and just keep going. That's how you're going to get to your ultimate goal. I thought that was a pretty cool reframe into our world from health advice.
Plus, if you start now, you'll have a little bit longer before you inevitably quit on the 18th of January, which is National Quitting Day.
So start now and you can quit before the 1st and then do something new for 18 days.
You're ahead of the curve.
Exactly.
Yeah, you get two blown goals for your money.
Right. Well, we always start the show with a little bit of an ad spot, and this week's sponsor is me. We're in the middle of running a Q4 group right now, and in that Q4 group, I personally have shared 614 leads from October 1st to today. I checked the stats and the potential profit on those leads shared. If you were to buy 5 units of each one, is just a hair over $36,000. So the potential ROI on the group, just from my leads, is massive. I mean, it's in the hundreds. It's in the 3 digits. But there's also 2 other folks, Eli Glukowski and Derek Lee. They're also sharing leads. And we've shared almost 600 different sources that have been checked. And maybe 1 or 2 has slipped by where it's like, maybe you shouldn't order from this one. But all the other ones are pretty solid. Matter of fact, one I shared today, I was especially proud of. And we've decided to keep the group going through the first quarter of the year. This is one of those experiments. But I'm not here to sell you on that group. Instead, I want to gift someone a spot in that group that's going to offer leads. It's going to offer support via a chat and twice weekly live coaching. That's private. It's just a very small group. And we're going to be charging $1,000 for this group. But one person is going to get in absolutely free, totally gratis. And here's how to get entered. All right. If you head to cleartheshelf.com/Q1, it's cleartheshelf.com/Q1. Follow the instructions. All right. It's going to tell you to subscribe to my YouTube channel. That's it. All you've got to do to enter is hit the subscribe button. I'd love if you hit the little bell icon as well. But all you've got to do is subscribe. If you're already a subscriber to my YouTube channel, make sure to like a video, drop a comment. That's your entry. That's all you need to do. And we'll be drawing a winner whenever the countdown goes to 0. I think that's in 2 or 3 days. I'm not really sure. I didn't set it up. It was set up for me. But go over cleartheshelf.com/Q1 will cost you $0, and one lucky person will get access to leads from 3 different people along with support all through Q1 so that we can do some of these experiments together. And we'll see you in there. All right, guys, let's get to some news. Okay. There was a little bit of a slow news week, but I was glad about that because it allowed me to find some things that I think will be interesting nonetheless. And yeah, Ryan, only 26 entries right now. An easy opportunity to win. But man, and I think I speak for all of us, but I love small business. Like small business, I love them. Small businesses employ nearly 50% of the population here in the United States. And small businesses produce almost 44% of the total GDP in the United States. I saw an article from Entrepreneur that we're in a bit of a small business renaissance. And I don't know. I wanted to chat about this because it has numbers. It has, small business that I love. But the U.S. is averaging 430,000 new business applications per month in 2024. That is 50% more than in 2019, according to the U.S. Treasury Department. Now, the states with the largest percentage of growth were Idaho. It was Idaho. Idaho at 6.2%.
No way.
I don't know what they're doing out there besides growing potatoes, but they've become a business mecca.
Congrats
Delaware,
on getting the internet.
Right? Yeah. Right. Welcome to the 21st century, Idaho. Delaware is in second place at 5.6%, probably because so many people want to file there, not because you guys are some sort of business mecca. I'm sorry, Delaware.
All tech companies are registered in Delaware.
Exactly. Yeah. Although we'll see what happens. Is that going to be the case going forward?
This could change.
Based on what their courts did recently. And then third place is the state that I call home, is Florida with what we call home, 5.2% growth here in Florida. Now that could be because so many people have moved here over the past couple of years. Miami is becoming, it's not quite Austin when it comes to being, tech outside of Silicon Valley, but it may be in third place for tech. West Virginia was flat, which I mean, this is
That's
the
not
only
surprising.
news that West Virginia makes. And New York actually saw a decrease in growth of 0.5%. But after I read this, I went out and I asked Perplexity to give me some more facts about small businesses, and I found these ones interesting. Small businesses contributed to 70% of the total new jobs created between March 2021 and March 2022. Approximately 50% of all businesses start at home. We're all in good company. And 60% of businesses with no employees are home-based. And that's not just people running e-commerce businesses. We get very trapped in these bubbles quite often because that's what we know, that's what we see. But you know, that plumber that you call, that electrician, that handyman. I know that my handyman, shout out Jose, he's fantastic. He is a small business, you know, who runs out of his home with no employees, except for when he makes his son come and work with him and hold the ladder. Women own around 26% of all small businesses in the United States, which I was expecting a smaller number. So I'm glad that number is at 26%. Nearly half are owned by Generation X. Gen X owns half of the U.S. small businesses. And I don't know that they are they part of that silver tsunami? Because boomers are getting a little bit older than that, right?
Yeah, I think the big silver tsunami is mainly targeting the boomer generation, but the generation that is most likely to inherit those businesses are going to be Gen X.
Yeah.
Because I think it's boomers, Gen X, millennials, Gen Z, and then whatever's after that. So yeah, that makes a ton of sense to me.
Yeah. And then finally, the last one is almost 80% of small business owners were self-financed when they launched their business, while only 16% were funded by bank loans. So the other 4%, that's going to be, I'm guessing that's going to be people who are using cap tables or some sort of, you know, YC funding, that kind of thing. So 4% of all businesses actually have investments, while the other 96% are either self-financed or have, you know, bank loans. And the number one place where small businesses get financing when they actually do take in cash is by getting a bank loan based on the equity in their home. That takes a brass pair, if I can be blunt.
Well, this is interesting, right? So that last point tells me that the vast majority of businesses being non-self-funded, so that 4%, are most likely the boomer and Generation X, because millennial household owning is not very high, and I think it's exponentially decreasing, obviously, as you go down in generations. So that's not surprising. But think about this. You mentioned how many small businesses are getting created, how much it's contributing to the GDP. I very much believe that will exponentially increase because the friction, and I'm going to use that term very loosely, and I'll explain why in a second, is vastly decreasing. If you look at the cost to start a software company, a SaaS company like Aura is, forever ago, you didn't have cloud computing. You had to buy your own servers, install them, have them networked, everything, maintain them. If you wanted to grow the company, you bought more servers. It was like 50 grand at one point to like start like minimum just to get the infrastructure.
That makes me, sorry, I want to cut it. Yeah. That makes me think of a book I read about Google when they started. And when they did not have enough servers, they went out and they actually bought desktops and then started networking the desktops together because they needed to spin up server space faster than they could get servers.
Now, Aura could quadruple in the next hour. We're not going to go down because we have cloud computing. It's elastic. It can go up and down. Obviously, it'll cost us a ton of money, but still. The cost when we got started with Aura that was generally accepted was like $5 grand. Now, I mean, listen, you if you start a software company, you can go and get AWS. You can go get 100 to 200,000 AWS credits, and AWS is basically Amazon's web service. That's what most sites and software is hosted on. That's your compute. You can go get that all day. So basically, your first 100 grand of running your software company, of the hosting, which is like the vast majority of your costs outside of labor, gone. Costs nothing. So now it comes down to, well, okay, I can get the compute, I can get the resources, I need the time, the intelligence to build the software. That's starting to go away because most of your software is what's called CRUD. CRUD's an acronym. It stands for create, retrieve, update, and delete. Most of your software does those 4 things, right? It's basically a database. You input some information, you can get it out, you can update it, like a CRM, right? That's just a CRUD app. Now, can you build more complicated stuff with it? Sure. But most of your CRUD apps are not that complicated from a technical perspective. Now, once you start talking about we're going to scale infinitely and stuff like that, sure, but you already have cash flow at that point. You can afford a $250,000 a year software engineer. So the when I say friction, I don't just mean from a capital perspective, like I just mentioned, that's definitely true, but also like look at the amount of tools you have access to. Right? You mentioned Perplexity, simple answers. Like, before we jumped into this, I'm playing around with Claude projects because I haven't yet. I took a course on using leverage. So I literally just copied everything, turned it all into a PDF, uploaded it. And now I got to tweak it because I created it 10 minutes ago, be able to be like, hey, I have this problem. Help me use leverage to solve it. And that took me 10 minutes to put together, maybe 30 in total to like tweak and get exactly where I want it to. So think about the compression of, I have an idea I can actually execute on this, massively getting compressed. And I mean, my co-founder, James, and I started the company because we started DMing on Instagram. We worked for a year and a half on the company before meeting in person. This is before like Zoom was like readily accessible. This is before Discord groups. I mean, now there are projects getting created where you don't even know the person's legal name. It's all like anonymous profiles. And you're like, yeah, we've been working together for a year and a half on this open source thing. Like, all right, cool. So the ability to find an expert on anything, pretty much non-existent. I can pretty much find anybody that has worked on anything at this point using the internet. If I don't know how to do something, or I don't know the best practices, it's no longer going to take me half an afternoon of Googling. I'm just going to ask Perplexity and be fine. You know what I mean? Like, you can move faster. Your access to knowledge. I mean, people used to say, oh, the internet is access to knowledge. That's true, but it's very inefficient because you have to go wade through all that crap. And the amount of data we create per day is insane. It's more than what we've had historically in aggregate. So how do you wade through all that? Well, now AI just does it for you. There's a project being created that I'm super excited about. It's supposed to launch in the next few weeks. I forget the name. It's like an open source thing, but it's on chain. So it's a blockchain thing. And what they're doing is creating this team of agents. And their whole concept is, let's say you want to learn one subject. Well, the future is not go take a course on it that's rigid and all these things. No. You say, I want to learn this. And it goes, okay, cool. I'm going to go and create a curriculum for you. And as you make progress, I'll adjust it. Because if you're moving super fast, I can give you more. If you're moving super slow, I'll need to readjust how I'm giving you this information. So they're creating this interesting AI-led education program. So if you're like, I want to be amazing at startups, great. Go have that curriculum be created for you and have it self-optimize for you as an individual. And if something new comes up, like let's say you're learning some kind of science and a new paper just got released that fundamentally changes everything, it lets you know that. Like that, I mean, the speed at which we can move is incredible right now. So I think the number of small businesses exponentially goes up because there's this latent potential problem, right? Like I have a bunch of friends like, oh, I have this awesome idea. I'm like, cool, why don't you do it? And they're like, honestly, it's just overwhelming. I don't know where to get started. What if you didn't have that problem? Now all that latent potential gets unlocked. That's going to be insane. And it makes a lot of sense that a lot of people are working for smaller companies. You know, we have hired people from very large tech companies, and they're like, yeah, it's great. But at a certain point, when a company is so big, it's not as fun to work with. And I feel like I'm not having as big of a contribution to the outputs. So I'm going to go join a smaller team that has massive potential and really be on the ground level of it. People want to work at small companies all day. I mean, it's just different culture and environment. There's a lot more flexibility. There's not an HR team, you know, telling you how to talk and how not to talk. It's just like, hey, man, don't say that next time. All right, cool. Move on. So all this makes complete sense to me, and I'm so excited for it.
That's awesome. So I'm going to pop in here. Crypto Butthead, or I sold a product I usually sell for 170 for almost 300 last night.
Crypto, I used this. I did a scale demo call this morning at 9 a.m. and they were asking about Maven. I literally pulled up your tweet. I was like, this is what happens. I'm not even going to sell you on it. Here's what happens. So I appreciate that. Yeah, it's very exciting times. You know, we're talking about this in office hours. I think for sellers specifically, 2025 is going to be very interesting. The amount of things you will be able to do that feels like magic will exponentially go up.
I agree. Yeah. I mean, I had someone tell me just the other day, you know, hey, it took me an hour and I replicated this software that I was using. Yeah, people are gonna have to be looking over their shoulders somewhat. You know, there's gonna be some really, really cool and interesting things done, I think.
There's this concept right now being played around with called either throwaway software or compostable software. So the concept is I need to create this functionality. You jump into AI, it creates it, you use it. When you're done with it, it deletes itself. Why? Why would it ever delete itself? Well, because the cost of replacing it, of recreating it, is nothing. So why does it need to sit there? Now, this is really helpful for those CRUD type things that I mentioned, or for basic automations. Like, I'm non-technical, I'm not a software engineer, but I write some code. There are automations I write in Python that I really couldn't pull off by myself, but using AI, I can. So you'll get stuff like that, right? Like you won't have to wait for somebody to build the software for you or to write the code for you. For a lot of the low level stuff that's relatively straightforward, AI will just do it for you. Like repricing as a whole is the most complicated software you could build in the Amazon seller space outside of like the web scraping stuff, which like it's complicated, it's a scale problem, but there's a right way to do it and a wrong way to do it. Repricing is really difficult, especially doing it for like thousands upon thousands of users in a performant way. So I feel comfortable now, but I am thinking about this, you know, like, you know, maybe you wanted to do one very specific thing and you don't care about anything else. Great. Right. I mean, it's getting really, I keep saying it's getting really interesting because I'm at a loss of words, right? Like, it's just, some of this stuff is mind blowing. It's absolutely mind blowing. But the reason why I mentioned at the beginning of the call about Q1 being a good time to experiment, you need to be playing with this kind of stuff and just seeing what's possible, what's not quite there yet, what's on the horizon. You know, we're joking because a founder that I follow, the founder of Lindy.ai, which I promote quite a bit because I love the software. He started playing Factorio, right? This like create this automation manufacturing thing on like a planet. And like, it's very procedural for us nerds. We like that kind of stuff. But he's like, wait, I'm basically building the software that is Factorio for business. And why can't businesses be built like playing this game? And when you pause and you think about it, you're like, yeah, actually, there's not that much difference. It's just we have not yet had the ability to automate things that require nuance and subjectivity. We've had rigid automation like Zapier, but if it doesn't conform perfectly to the automation you built, it breaks. Now it's no longer the case. So I think eventually
Zapier was like cutting edge. Isn't it crazy how quick we've gone from Zapier to what we can do now?
Yeah. I mean, I wrote a blog post, I think it was 2017. and it was titled, "Hey Siri," sorry, I'm going to trigger on my devices. I didn't yet. Can you place a restock order for me? And that whole blog post was trying to be futuristic of like, oh, like what could happen if you have this set up correctly is it could check this and check that. And I was thinking through this rigid automation kind of concept because that's all we had. But I knew we weren't quite there. Well, now we kind of are. Like we have these components. I mean, you could hook it up to your inventory management system. There's an API for credit cards. You could have something check your credit card and be like, I have $5,000 available. Great. I want to spend $5,000. And then, or, you know, it goes, okay, you have $5,000 available. Here's what this tool recommends you should restock. Oh, clearly, you know, you can restock 10,000. You only have 5. How do we optimize that? And it just give you the answer. Right. But eventually you get to a point where it's placing the POs. It's placing the OA orders. I mean, imagine this, right? You have an agent that wakes up every morning at 8 a.m., checks your bank accounts, like your credit cards. It goes, okay, we got $20,000 to spend right now. Then you have this other agent. It's like a data analyst agent. It analyzes all your historical data. And it goes, you know what? We've been spending a lot in shoes category, but the returns are so high. It's really just not worth the spend. We can make more profit elsewhere. So it creates this like summary, right? And then it sends it to your sourcing agents. It says, hey guys, for today, here's what I need you to follow. You got $5,000 or you got $20,000 to spend. Here's what to avoid. Here's what seems to work really well for us. They go, okay, cool. Good to know. They spin each other up, right? They create more versions of themselves. They go and they spend the $20,000 and they spend it in an hour. They place the orders, by the way. Or maybe let's say that we want to put some checks and balances in. They find all the leads that make sense. They come together, submit all their applications, if you will, to a manager, a sourcing manager agent. It looks at everything, goes, yep, that looks good. Let me send this to Dylan. I'm going to send him a Slack with everything. And I say, you know what? That all looks good. Go for it. It goes, okay. Goes back to him and says, hey, go purchase all that. And then you have an email agent as it's receiving receipts goes, cool, got that. I'm going to put together a nice email. And at 4 p.m. every day, if I have those, I'm going to email it to my prep center and let them know, hey, here's what's coming. Here's how many units. Here's the product. Here's the ASIN, everything. And let them know, hey, when I get tracking for each of these, I'll email those over to you. You did nothing in that outside of be like, yep, that sounds good. Or, hey, you know, product 2 is actually not that great. I think we should avoid that. And here's why. He goes, okay, cool. I'll remember that for next time. I mean, how's that not a video game?
It's going to be very, very interesting. And what are the second order effects of that is something that I think about too. You know, does that mean, okay, are we willing to take, you know, 5% margins, you know, or do we move more toward, you know, the Walmart model and take lower margins for higher volume because there is so little time involved and it really just becomes a capital game. And then what happens to smaller sellers? You know, what will their edge be? Because there will still be edges that are able to be had, but what will their edge be? Because it won't be, you know, the big guys are going to come in with the capital and they're going to be able to say, okay, well, I'll take 5% and I'm going to deploy these AI agents or whatever it is.
Yeah.
So where do we find, you know, the zig for their zag?
Well, here's the good part. This stuff won't be relegated for Fortune 50 companies. It will be accessible. It's not gonna be super cheap, right? It's not gonna be 20 bucks a month, but if we're talking $2,000 a month to be able to spend 20 grand a day pretty much on autopilot, yeah, you're gonna pay that. So I think the technology itself becomes the advantage. The reason why I say that, my dad does long haul trucking. Tesla came out with the semi truck. It's sick. I'm like, dude, I would become a truck driver just to ride this thing. And he goes, the moment he works for UPS, he says, the moment that they implement that, I'm retiring. I said, okay, why? Because it seems like a better job. You got to do less. He's like, well, to me, it's not the same. And that's not what I like driving. I was like, okay, fair enough. So you're going to have Luddites, right? You're going to have people be like, well, I just don't want to do it that way. That's fine. But it's kind of like the steroids in you know, professional sports, right? If they legalize steroids, you're going to have some portion of people that are going to be like, well, I don't believe in that. Great. You can keep playing, but the game itself has changed. And so you either adapt and get on board or you don't play the game. And so I think there's going to be some people that are just going to be like, that's not my jam. I think that's That's already the case. We have that every single month, right? Where people are just like, I'm over it. This isn't for me. But these are going to be not just for tech savvy people either.
Mm-hmm.
This is going to be for the people who get ahead of the curve that are going to get the advantage. And that's not to mean that if you're not perfectly ahead of the curve and a dork like me, that you can't take advantage of it. That's not true. It's going to take a while for this stuff to roll out and go more mainstream. But I think the game will change, right? If I've always said you have two problems, and usually you start with the sourcing problem. You have some capital, everybody's varying degrees, but you struggle with sourcing. Eventually, you solve the sourcing problem. You know how to source profitable inventory. Now you have a capital problem. Because now I can buy 30 grand worth of inventory, but I only got 10 grand. What do? You either go raise some money or you just keep snowballing into it and you're okay with that. Both options are fine. It's totally up to the individual. So you're already playing a capital game. What we're talking about here, though, is taking the sourcing aspect problem and massively increasing the efficiency of doing so. So right now, or back in the day, you did Forex trading, right? You would trade currencies. I studied this in international finance where you would do a triangle, right? You'd basically buy this currency, or you'd have this currency, buy that currency, trade into this third currency, and then back into your original currency, and you made a profit. That's arbitrage.
Mm-hmm.
It's currency arbitrage. Well, you can't do that manually now. Why? Because it needs to happen so fast. And so the margins are smaller in doing that, but you make that up in volume. So now you have these high frequency traders where they want fiber optics directly into the market, into Wall Street, like they're that close. And they have algorithms run this as fast as possible.
Mm-hmm.
It's the same analogy.
Oh, we're going to be quant sellers instead of quant traders.
I wrote a blog post on this called The Exponential Seller. I think we will start to see this emerge. This is somebody, I'm still, honing what that means, but to me, it's somebody who leans into things like AI and automation, and is able to not build this business the way it's always been built, but use first principles and say, what am I doing here? And what's really the best way to use that? Using leverage and not just outsourcing. We lean on outsourcing so much because it's made sense. There's been a lot of technical limitations in what we can outsource. So we go to VAs. Great. But that won't be the future. You'll go to AI. You'll have digital assistants, not virtual assistants. And there'll be pennies on the dollar instead of dollars on the hour, So the game will continue to evolve, but I would argue it's the same game we're already playing. We're just playing it in the old school agriculture where we're all farmers. And what I see happening is we transition into vertical farmings and warehouses run by algorithms and AI.
Interesting.
Now, some people still farm potatoes in Idaho by hand, but those are smaller numbers.
And now Idaho has the internet, so look out.
Yeah, exactly.
I always visualize it as a roller coaster car. Like people are in the front car and they're gonna hit the hill first, right? And they're gonna feel like they're moving faster. You can still ride in the back car, and you'll get the whip. You'll ride the same ride, but you're just doing it a couple steps behind the front cars, but you can still ride the roller coaster. And that's kind of how I picture all of this, and getting back to the news about the small business proliferation. The great thing is that it's not safety in numbers, but it's support in numbers, number one, it's evidence of moving from a manufacturing economy to a service economy, which we've known that for a long time, but now this is, strong evidence that we're actually seeing come through. But it's a good space for Amazon sellers because there are so many of us, and there's so much of this, like these kind of numbers and, the GDP allocation that's going to come from this massive boost of small business. It's going to increase support. And we've seen it with the Amazon space, right? As it becomes more popular, once it caught on in the social medias and people were like, wow, this is a great opportunity. Good and bad, like there's a bunch of people, I'm sure watching right now going, filthy horse seller, right, Chris? You'll have good and bad, but you get both, and there's more people coming on, like I like when we interview people, big sellers who have a lot of years in the Amazon space. I love asking them what the snapshot looked like of when they started. What kind of support did you have? And comparing that to just the embarrassment of riches that sellers jumping into the game now and in the last few years have. So I always think I think it's fun to talk and hear about how they navigated waters where there wasn't really a lot of content out there. So I do like that. I think it's the community and as it becomes the population, it's just going to be too big to not support, and that's going to help all of us, in my opinion.
Yeah, no, for sure.
So I will say one thing. For any of you who are thinking about using AI or are currently using AI, there are so many good ways to use it. If I catch any one of you using it to create replies on social media, I'm going to come after you. Those are garbage.
They are not great.
And so, guys, I'll tell you what, we're going to get to your questions. When Dylan said he was like, "Hey guys, can I hop on?" I texted him and I was like, "Yeah, absolutely. You can come on." I said, "This is going to be 90 minutes, not 60 if you're coming with us." So we will get to your guys' questions. If you have them, drop them in the chat. We'll get there. This topic of small businesses, because I love small business. Like there's my kids and my wife, and then there is business. Like those are my two great loves. But that last topic brings me to what's probably going to be a little bit of a rant. This past weekend, a friend of ours who has recently started her own business spent some time at a little retail fair. And a little local town has these little retail fairs in a lovely little area. And there were probably 20 or 30 vendors there. Now, because I am a sucker for small business, I tried to give as many of these small businesses my money with my kids' help, of course. But I also tend to be really curious, like uncomfortably curious at times. And I'm willing to ask questions that others probably would not be comfortable doing. So I stopped by almost every single one of these stalls and I start asking, "Hey, how long you been in business? What kind of social media are you relying on? How have sales been while you're here? How's foot traffic feel? What kind of marketing plans do you have? Like what are the cost of goods on your homemade cheesecake? Why'd you get started? What are your goals? Like, where do you plan on having? You plan on having a retail storefront?" Like, to be honest, I try to make sure that I don't keep other customers away, but I'm probably kind of annoying when I'm talking to these people. And I want to share an example here. So I was talking to a man and he had his 14-year-old there with him. They were slinging glizzies. Those are hot dogs for those of you who don't have tweens or TikTok. Okay. Now, there were no Chicago dogs, nobody just throwing ketchup and mustard on them. These were dogs with homemade sauces, slaws, peppers. And then they had a hot dog for like 6 different countries. And they based these hot dogs on different countries' cuisines. And these hot dogs were running about $5 on average. But just for this guy to get started, he needed to shell out about $3,000 for this hot dog cart. That's based on the research that I did. I didn't ask him how much his hot dog cart cost. But he had a custom printed tent. I mean, it's Florida. It gets hot. It gets sunny. He had signage, insurance, a food truck inspection, a filing fee for his business, the business fair fee, dogs, buns, and accoutrements so he can sell the sizzle. And I'm guessing this probably cost him about $5,000 on the low side in startup costs before he made a single penny. Maybe more, don't know what kind of processing fees he had or any other fees that may be there. But this guy needs to sell at least 1,000 hot dogs just to recoup his investment. He's playing the game on hard mode. And I took a couple of things away from talking to these folks. The first is that a lot of these people are slinging their wares just because they want or need to make an extra $1,000 a month of income. And the Amazon sellers who are just looking to make an extra, enough for an extra car payment or enough to put kids through private school, often find derision because they aren't scaling, bro, or their sales aren't hitting 50K a month. $1,000 a month in profit is life changing for many. So if you're hustling, a few extra nights a week, or you're just trying to provide a little something extra for your family, or even working your way to a full-time business ownership, good for you. You should be proud of that. I applaud you. I'm rooting for you. And I can guarantee that these guys with me are doing the same. But the second thing that I took away from this business fair is that we as Amazon sellers, we're on easy street. You would not know that from a casual scroll of your favorite social media site. And I know that you may be listening and you might be saying, Chris has lost it. He's a nut job. But these small business owners are out there trying to find foot traffic, working every single weekend, visiting towns, fairs, and farmers markets across the state. They're posting to social media, hoping they go viral. They're scraping together savings or stashing away any penny in profit so they can get themselves a storefront because that's their dream. They're playing the game on hardwood. No, they're playing the game on insanity mode. Imagine if these folks with that kind of grit and determination were to find the Amazon opportunity. They no longer need to worry about where traffic is coming from. They don't have to spend $5,000 to sell their first $5 hot dog. They don't have to schlep their wares in their storefronts around the entire state to find customers. They get to bang away on a keyboard, send toys to a prep center, and pay their American Express bill. They might have to deal with some lost inventory. They might have to deal with some brands getting gated. Maybe Amazon raises the fees. Maybe they change their inbound shipping flows. But there are ways to try and get your money back for lost inventory. Heck, there are softwares that will automate the process for you for the most part. There are other channels to sell your gated brands. You can choose to sell higher value products to combat fees. I think that we may need to steel our spines a little bit as sellers and realize how much easier it is not to have to drive traffic while also being able to see a chart that will let us know what we can expect in terms of velocity for the products we want to sell. We can start this business for less than $100 and test it out with a $1 used book from the Goodwill. And this business can scale to $1,000 a month. It can scale to $50,000 a month, $1 million a month, $10 million a month, and more. We know that there are billion-dollar sellers on the Amazon platform. So I hope that in a season of Thanksgiving, we can, even though there are things that go wrong, that are bad, that may not be fair, that we realize how good we've got it compared to a lot of other people who are running businesses.
I'm going to build on that a little bit. Being a business owner, being a founder, not easy. Never is.
No.
I thought going from being a seller to going into software was going to be the world's easiest thing. No, it was hard, but a different kind of hard. But the thing that helps me, it's some quote, I don't know where it came from, but at one point you prayed for the problems you have now. It's easy to lose track of that, right? You'll always have problems. I used to have this weird assumption that I recently broke, that as I got older, life got easier. Turns out, no. It gets more complicated. You always have problems. It doesn't matter how much money you have. You have problems, just different kinds of problems. But would you rather have these problems or harder problems? There's certainly easier problems, but they won't feel easier when you're in them. So I've had businesses where, granted, it wasn't a hot dog cart, but doing lighting for weddings. Not the easiest business, not the hardest business either. But I remember having $5,000 in cash, and I was like, I'm the richest dude ever. Like, this is awesome. But then I wanted more scale, get into Amazon more. Okay, well, there's problems there too, certainly. But I wrote a doc. I wrote a blog post. It's long lost, but it was basically like me visualizing my ideal day as a business owner. And a lot of that has changed in terms of what I want. But I pretty much have all those things. And I still got problems. You have to, as easy as it is and hard to implement, and I'm certainly guilty of this, keep things in check and in perspective and be like, okay, everybody's got it either harder or easier than you do, right? The person who's homeless right now, oh, he's dying for your life. That's the only thing he wants, is to have your problems. Now you look at somebody at a higher level and go, I'm dying to have their problems. That's the hedonic treadmill. You will always feel that way. So you really have to pause and be like, yeah, I want to be bigger. I don't want to have these problems, but you choose everything's hard. You choose the hard. What hard do you want? Do you want Amazon hard? Do you want software hard? Do you want hot dog hard? Like it's all different. But to your point, Chris, like every business has two sides of it, supply and demand. Most companies have to build the demand while trying to build the supply. That's actually very difficult. That's why Tesla really struggled. And once they cracked the supply side, it was easy for them on the demand side. As an Amazon seller, you don't have to care about the demand side. It's handled for you. You do get to look at data and be like, that'd be a good decision, or that's a bad decision. I'm not going to do that. What? Hold on. You get to go test an entire product market with minimal risk. That is the coolest thing ever. And listen, we all hate it when fees get raised. But you know what always happens? Fees get raised. It makes me sad when I have a user who they get hit with a Section 3 and they go, if I can't correct this in 3 days, I'm out of business. It makes me sad because it tells me that nobody taught them, or they didn't take the time to go learn the foundations of business. Do you have an emergency fund as a person? You should. Well, why would you have an emergency fund for? What emergency? I don't know, but I know that one could happen. Okay, so I'm going to have 3-6 months cash in the bank. If everything goes to hell in a handbasket, I got 3 to 6 months to figure life out. Do I think I can do it? Yeah. Okay, we're good now. Why wouldn't you also apply that to your business? We keep that for every employee in the company. If everything goes to zero tomorrow, do I think that 6 intelligent people can figure out how to break even again in 3 to 6 months? Yes. Great. Section 3s suck. Nobody wants to get hit with it. But the reality is it's happening. And you can either accept reality or reject it. But I would prefer you to accept it and say, okay, cool. Now what? Well, now, if I haven't been hit with one, the likelihood is higher than it previously was. What should I do to make that a non-business ending thing for me? I'm a big fan of a quote, not a quote, but a phrase in the startup world, which is just don't die. If you just have enough money to exist tomorrow, you have all tomorrow to also try and reverse whatever catastrophe it is and solve the problem. If you got 3 months, you got a lot of tomorrows. Just don't die. That's it. As long as business is so interesting, because in the world of game theory, you have 2 types. You got finite games, which are like sports, right? There's a clear winner and a loser, clear rules. You have infinite games. Infinite games are like war and business. Business is an infinite game. Nobody here is winning or losing compared to one another. It's not how this works. We choose to play the game, or we choose not to play the game. So, knowing that, how do you just be able to continue playing the game? Changes everything.
Yeah. I agree.
And it's not even, you can even take that in a different direction. It's not necessarily Section 3s. And I see Artem in the chat, and some of that stings undeservedly on your side, Artem. Take it back to the person on social media. I don't know who it is, and if they're listening, I apologize for picking on you, but they got restricted in Nike, and it turns out their catalog was upwards of 90% Nike. Look up diversification, and you raise a good point in these examples, is that, congratulations if you took the opportunity, if you saw it and you said, what is this Amazon thing? And you dug in and, you bought a course or you did whatever, you started. That's admirable. That's, That's a great quality to have, but don't let that education stop, because diversification is in business 101 books. That's the first semester of this. Make sure you keep learning, because you learn to mitigate that risk. And you know what, I've always said, we brought this up before in some of our content, but that's why I think people who start part-time selling on Amazon while they have a main gig, I think they have an advantage over maybe the youth that just kind of see that are drawn in by the wealth. If that's what drew you in, you are at a bit of a disadvantage, because the people who are hustling, they have a safety net, but they're also putting in a full day's work, and that kind of covers their nut. And then they're taking their free time where, you could be out at happy hour drinking, or, you could be playing golf or whatever, but these people are taking their free time and they're compounding the profits, and their personal empire, and they're learning and they're getting their reps in, so that once they decide to go full time, once they take off the golden handcuffs, as Miles and Warner like to say, they know what's on the line, and they've already had, they've now freed up 8 hours that they were punching a clock. They were answering to somebody else, but they know the grind, so now they've put their family's welfare on the line. Yeah. They said, I'm punching out for the last time, fellas. I'm on my own, but they know it's at stake. And they've managed all that. So now they can take that 8 hours of productivity they did for somebody else and put it towards their business. I think they have a serious advantage. And that's like the hot dog cart guy. When that person realizes that there are easier paths to, I don't know, his hot dogs may be great. Maybe, no, I shouldn't say there's necessarily more money. He could be a phenomenon for all I know, but you know what I mean? Like, if he figures out, and it's all your entry point. That's a great thing about networking is I in one of my old newsletters, I associated it to a roundabout, where people are coming in different directions, and you all kind of go in, you travel in the same path for a while until you figure out where you need to get off, and everyone's exit point's different, but everyone's entry point is different too, but you kind of end up as a collective, even if it's just for a brief second, so that hot dog guy hasn't seen the right social media yet, but he might just be further around the roundabout. And when he gets here, he's probably going to outwork, some of these people that are a little too quick to whine about a minor inconvenience in the grand scheme of things.
But even with that, there's always the greener pasture, right? So talking with VC friends in the venture capital space up in Boston, they're like, man, I want to be a founder, because I work with all these founders and it just looks amazing. And then they try to start something and it doesn't go anywhere because they've never been operators. But then founders, you get to a certain point, you're like, man, being a VC sounds kind of nice. You just write checks and like have people demo stuff, like cool cutting edge stuff to you, and you write checks. But then you dig it a little deeper, you're like, okay, it also has its problems, like everything's got a problem. But yeah, I was a personal trainer, had a wedding business, got into RA, was horrible at OA, got into wholesale, that took off, met my now co-founder, now I'm in software. None of it makes any sense. My first semester in college, I was a computer science major. I hated it and went to finance. Now I don't work in finance, and now I run a software company. Nothing makes sense. But it is important to keep in mind, like, what do you want? What are you trying to build? And this is why I harp on people when I'm like, what's your goal? X dollars. What after that? Because the simple reality is most people are going to tell you, if I make $100,000 a year, I can quit my job, I can do this full time, and I'll be free. Great. Then what? You can do that in a year. You can do that in 6 months if you're really dedicated and you're learning and you're kicking butt. What then? You can make money doing anything, right? You can make a lot of money being a drug dealer, but you choose not to do that, right? Why? Because you wouldn't enjoy it. I hope you wouldn't enjoy it.
Stupid cops. I mean, that's the wrong thing to do, is what I mean.
You know what I mean? It's like
we're gonna need a disclaimer here soon.
We do.
The views expressed on the live Q&A show do not necessarily reflect it.
So you do have to pick. If you're passionate about something, like for me, I was passionate about tech. I shut down my profitable Amazon business after building a name for being a wholesale seller. Could have done courses, could have done all that stuff. I said, that's not what I want to do. That's not what fulfills me. I want tech. I want to build stuff. I want to have an impact on other people. I want to build something that is tangible. And so when that opportunity came, I leapt at it. So there's no right or wrong way to do it. But again, if you're doing something that you couldn't imagine not doing it, even when it's really, really hard, because you will have I don't care what company you're in, you're going to have days, weeks, months, years where it just sucks. But if you can't imagine doing anything else and you don't want to do anything else, you'll stick around. I always recommend, no matter what you're jumping into, if you're being serious about it, commit 10 years. If you're actually trying to build something, commit 10 years to it. It gives you enough time to learn what you need to take those weeks where everything just seems like it's crashing and be like, it's fine. It's year one. What the heck do I expect? I don't know what the hell I'm doing. I'm year 8 in the software company. I still feel like I don't know what the heck I'm doing. I've learned a lot. I can talk about a lot, but I know there's so much more that I don't know. Why? Because of my experience, what we've done, the skill sets I've built. I'm like, yeah, I've built a lot. I'm way more of an expert than when I got started, but I know that there's so much more to figure out. And I'm driven by figuring those things out. And that's when it's like, when it sucks, I'm like, yeah, but like, I don't want to do anything else. Like I can go get a job tomorrow. I don't want to do that. I'm good. I like, even if the job paid 3 times what I made right now, I'm good. Honestly.
Yeah. It's honestly, it's perspective, and what you said, it seems to be a fine line with some people, the people who can't have tough conversations with themselves and call themselves on their own bullshit. There's a fine line between daydreaming and goal planning.
I
like that person
too.
said, oh, I want X dollars. If I could get X dollars, I'll be fine. And I tell the story. My son hates when I tell the story, but I asked him when he was a little kid, call it 10 years old. I said, what do you want to be? He said, I want to be an NBA player. I said, okay. I said, what are you going to do to get there? How many, you're going to practice dribbling for how long? How many days a week? How many shots you're going to put up every single day? And he hadn't thought about any of that. Right.
Yeah.
And he thinks I'm picking on him when I say that, but that's a quality that a lot of us do, that adults do. It's not necessarily just his youth. We don't consider the steps to get there, the work, the boots on the ground that it's going to take to actually get there, which is why I love, it forever since I first, turned this camera on with you, Chris, the motivation myth, when Jeff Hayden said, okay, set your goal, figure out the steps to get there, and then forget all about the goal. And you just put your head down and you just work on those steps. It was mind blowing when I read it at the time, and maybe it was, just the right time, that I put that book in my hands, but it made sense. It pulled the curtain off of what I thought was a mystery, and I think a lot of people don't have that tough conversation in their own head.
Yeah.
All right, guys, I promise we're going to get to your questions. I know we've been going for about an hour here talking and whatnot, but we will get to your questions. We've got 2 very quick hits. Number 1, and Chris actually brought this to my attention, looks like Walgreens may be in talks with a private equity firm, Sycamore Partners, and they may be going or talking about going private. Stock, which I doubt anyone has purchased, is up 18% on that rumor the last time that I checked, which is actually the largest increase in Walgreens stock in its history. 18% in one day. The only thing I want to know is if they go private and a private equity firm buys them, are they actually going to ship out all the damn units that I buy? Because they are not good at that right now. But I do think if they focused on e-commerce a little bit, it would may see an increase to the bottom line.
I think it depends on the CEO they put in place. PE firms are usually not good operators. They have to hire good operators. You're seeing this in the Amazon software space right now with the roll-up funds, where they get acquired and they've never run a software company before. This is very common. My wife's company got acquired by a roll-up fund in the medical space. Same thing. They have no idea what they're doing. So I want to say it's going to go well. It really, I think it's going to depend on the operators that they put in place, and especially the CEO.
Yeah, I agree. A recent acquisition from a private equity was Jimmy John's. I am very worried what they're going to do to the sandwich prices over there. Are we going to have another Subway catastrophe?
Yeah,
foot long for like $32.99.
$8 billion exit for Jersey Mike's.
$8 billion exit. Yes, sir.
Cold cuts are hopping, man. That hot dog guy might be onto
crazy.
Right. Another, you know what else is really popular in the roll-up space right now, which I don't think a ton of people talk about? Funeral parlors.
Oh yeah, that and retirement facilities.
Yep. Yeah.
Big right now.
Retirement facilities is one that man, that'd be tough. Because I don't know. Some of them are very poorly run, and they need to be run the right way. All right. Online grocery sales are up. U.S. online grocery market saw a big gain in November. It was led by an increase in monthly active users. That's according to the latest Bricks Meat Clicks and Mercatus grocery shopper survey, which found that the market ending in November 2024 had $9.6 billion in monthly sales, which is a 17.8% increase over last year, as all three fulfillment methods posted gains year over year. So that is click and ship, Amazon. That is buy online, pick up in store, and delivery. Those are all considered e-commerce, and that was up almost 18%. Nobody wants to go to the grocery store, and I don't blame them.
No,
1,000%.
No, that was, boy, pandemic grocery during the pandemic was my ticket to leaving the corporate world. So yeah, this is, and the great thing about this is that I feel like this is like a self-fueling trend, right? Because and I drive by it every single day when I pick the girls up from school. There is a local grocery chain, and it is now a vacant building right on the corner of a very, very busy intersection. There was a local chain. I think they got up to 8 locations, all within the same county. It was a beloved. My sister has stories of the kids got a free Smiley cookie when we used to go in there, and they had specialty beers when that was at its peak, and now they're closed. They just couldn't hang it because Walmart grocery, Target has grocery, Giant Eagle is one of the big players. So the smaller, the lower and the mom and pops unfortunately are going to suffer. But then at the same time, the mindset's shifting. Everyone's becoming plugged in. I'm about to place an online grocery order when I get off here to have my groceries dropped on my doorstep with a free express delivery, potentially within 90 minutes. So everyone's understanding, and the pandemic forced that. That's why I brought that up, right? Because people couldn't go out. So it forced a bunch of people that would have been late to the party to kind of get caught up, So I think the number's only going to keep growing because the survivors in the grocery, brick and mortar grocery, are going to be the behemoths. And there's this backlash against big corporation. If you get big enough and you do a couple things that get some press, a bunch of the granola people are going to be like, I'm not shopping there anymore, and where are they going to go? The only place to go is going to be online, and it's going to be some boutique place that makes them feel good. So I think it just kind of, the back end just kind of keeps feeding, the growth.
I think people care a little less about like the experience. Like you mentioned the cookie specifically, right? That was probably part of the experience and stuff like that. And it's like, I worked at Publix when I was a kid in high school. And it was always, customer service. I'm like, yeah, that's why people pay more to come to Publix than to Winn-Dixie. Sure. Nobody really cared. My generation, convenience, dude. I'm slap busy. Convenience, and there's this interesting thing. Maybe it's just me in my head, but like there are things that were reserved for royalty, right? Like there's a reason why all your old mansions have like a grocery door. They were delivered out back. I ain't going to the grocery store. Well, now all those things are done via technology, and you're like, extra $15 to not have to go there. Yeah, that sounds awesome. So you're seeing this across the board. I mean, I want to get windows tinted for the Teslas. I want to go somewhere. So my first thing is like finding one that comes to me. Like, you come here, you do it, we're good here. Like, why do I need to drive to you? That's wasting my time. You know what I mean? Like, an extra $40 to do that, sure.
Well, so, yeah, Chris, one of the small businesses you talked to, didn't the masseuse, wasn't her goal to be a mobile, like a
her whole goal was to make enough money so that she can hire people to man her brick and mortar location. And then she wants to have a truck so that she can go to people's homes or businesses or whatever and offer mobile massages. Absolutely. Uber should definitely.
I've got a gift card. I've got a gift card right now for a massage from last Christmas. And my mom's always like, why haven't you used it? I'm like, honestly, just the time. But if they're like, yeah, we'd come to you, I'd be like, yeah, tomorrow.
Like, right.
Yeah.
No, but that's Corey, Artem and Corey, they're mentioning Uber Eats. We're joking about $50 burritos and stuff like that, but that's people are paying that. Like that's convenience is climbing the value ladder in the consumer's mind in a big way, and that's where we are. We're kind of capitalizing on, again, that back end of the roller coaster car. The analog people finally catching up to how nice it is to have stuff just dropped on your doorstep.
Right. Idaho, you're in for a huge surprise. Okay.
Listen, if you guys want to see something cool, look up Pipe Dream. They're doing last mile delivery. This is cool. They have tubes they put in the ground. They connect to fulfillment centers. And then they have this like dishwasher machine thing that they can install in your home. You order something, it goes, great. This little robot runs along the track. Your thing connects to that pipe, pulls it up. It's already in your home.
Oh, so you're talking I was hoping it was like a vacuum delivery. Tube, like the bank.
It's not that far off, honestly. But I mean, now you're talking like 30-minute deliveries. No humans. Like, I mean, it's a big infrastructure play, so it will take forever to get installed. But people are working on that kind of stuff. You know what I mean?
Like, if I was building a new neighborhood, though, I would totally, like, if I was planning a neighborhood, that would be like, I'd be like, okay, yeah, we got to do that. That's cool,
dude. Everybody would pay an extra $50,000 on a mortgage.
Until big teleportation jumps into the space. We're like, vacuum tubes, get out of here.
My wife keeps asking me, she's like, how's that teleportation project coming? I was like, I'm getting close. I'm always getting close. I'm working on it.
All right, let's answer some questions here for folks. So Monkey Smoke, great username, by the way. Got hit with a Section 3, and your guys' video from last month helped a lot. That is awesome. We're hearing this more and more frequently. I'm really glad that we made that video. So that's great news. Let's see here.
Did you see Nate jumped in the chat, Chris?
Hey, Nate, what's going on, man? I totally missed that.
Can I just say the new profile pic, Blazer Nate, hits pretty hard.
Right? I believe that's an AI pic.
Really?
Heck yeah.
I believe so.
He went to a whole new level with that.
You know what I did? I got into the whole crypto stuff, and I still don't understand NFTs. So I copied and pasted a CryptoPunk as my avatar, and I made a tweet. I was like, nobody stopped me. I still don't understand NFTs. So
you can just do things.
So I have a CryptoPunk avatar, and I'm like, nobody told me I couldn't.
Yeah, I don't understand. I don't understand the NFTs either. Maybe if they used them somehow to sell a house or a physical piece of property, I get that, but outside of that, I don't see it.
Yeah.
I did notice the profile pic change, Dylan. I assumed that you were going to become like bow-tied Dylan or something like that. Another concept.
Oh, no. No.
I don't know what that is.
Me neither.
SR question. When you have an ASIN that is, say, 30 milliliters listed, no parent, and the same product with 100 milliliters, no listing, do you just create a new listing, or is there a way to add it as a variation? So if you want to stay within terms of service, which is what I would recommend, technically you are supposed to create a variation. You are not supposed to create a brand new listing, because if they're the exact same product and it's just a different size, that is a variation. You do the same thing if it was a different color, etc. Even do it if it's the same, let's say, shampoo and just a different flavor. You would do the exact same thing. So that is really what you need to do. Now, question is, will you be able to create that variation? I don't know. Amazon has made that much more difficult. Katie, Katie, will there be a way to sign up for the Q1 small group if you aren't selected as a lucky winner? Yes. Once the giveaway is all finished, then I'll start releasing information about signing up. So, but if you want to have the opportunity to win a free entry into our Q1 leads and support group, which is going to be kind of a continuation of our Q4 group, you can go to cleartheshelf.com/Q1. Follow the instructions. It's just subscribing to my YouTube channel, or hitting like or commenting on a video, and that's your entry to possibly win a $1,000 ticket to our Q1 group. What are your slowest sales month of the year for Amazon sales? And so I think a lot of people are going to tell you, oh, well, it's like February, etc. I disagree. Typical retail slowdowns are the dog days of summer. That is why you see those sales, typically manufactured sales. That's why Prime Day is in July. That's why, there's 4th of July sales. That's why that all of that stuff happens. It's the summertime. People are outside on vacation. Like, they don't need to be shopping. They are, hanging out and cooking barbecue and swimming. So, oh, there he is. What's up, man? Yeah, that's I do think that may be an AI pick.
He means business there, right?
You know what I mean?
Oh, this is too kind. Deal Hunters, feels good to listen to wise people. It's wise person. I'm not going to allow you to include Chris and I in.
No, that's y'all too. That's all y'all.
Any
show
thoughts
used to just
on...
be knuckleheads
right?
Ann Arbor.
I'm just over here just smacking coconuts together compared to Dylan. Any thoughts on new FBA shipments starting on the 20th? Inventory Labs 2.0 is a train wreck so far. I would imagine that a lot of shipping software is going to have some trouble, but I'm not going to blame them right now. Rollouts with Amazon typically are not
announced.
They're not the best, or announced. Yeah, they're not the best. Like,
listen, I've had APIs change and us find out, and there's no announcement, and then we create a it's called pull request, but basically, like, we create a bug for the Amazon API, and they check it like 3 weeks later. They're like, "Oh yeah, we think that's right." What do you mean? Why did you change something and not tell me? So yeah, it happens.
My thoughts are, I don't know why Amazon decided December 20th. Maybe they thought that that's going to be when, some sellers are going to slow down sending in shipments. I don't know if that was necessarily the best time. But it's the way it is. Amazon is, we've talked about this multiple times. They want to move to that flywheel model of distribution, because speed. They want hot, nasty speed from warehouse to customer, because that's what the customer wants. That's what they want to do to fight back the Temus and the Sheins of the world and keep Amazon customers on Amazon. And so, unfortunately, we're going to have to roll with it. It's going to be another one of those things that we've got to steel our spine for. Hey, Big T's in the house. Dylan, this one's for you. Any plans to get Aura to forget deleted listings and let users manually adjust the current price without going into Seller Central?
Yeah. So the second one, you could actually do that in Aura now. We call that a manual price. So you can actually set that in Aura. You don't have to jump into Seller Central to do that. In terms of deleting listings, we try not to do that because sometimes they can come back in stock and it's good to keep that data. If it's a big issue, the hack is, and please work with my support team, Casey or Finn, to do this with you. You can essentially export all your data, delete your marketplace, wait 10 minutes, add it back. And if it's not in Seller Central, we won't repull it. So there's a workaround if it's that big of a deal. But we try not to delete data is our big thing.
That's understandable. Artem is curious. Do you plan on releasing Aura for Walmart?
Yes. We just recently got accepted with the Walmart API. We're taking a look at it now, working with their team. I will say they're new to tech in this way, so they're very hands-on. And I will say the API has a lot of limitations that we're already noticing. So while I do want to do it and we are pushing to do it, there may be some hiccups, in which case, like, what I mean by that is there are things that we would like to do that we may not technically be able to do, but we're going to work with the Walmart API team to add functionality. So is it going to be the same level of Amazon repricing? I don't think so. Just looking at the API documentation. But this is definitely something we want to do. So, yeah.
Corey, if you Uber, and I know this is a little tongue in cheek, but if you Uber Eats a $50 order of Jimmy John's while you're prepping stuff, is that considered a tax write-off? I'm no CPA or bookkeeper,
Consult
but
your tax person.
Yeah, I would imagine there's probably a way to make that a tax write-off.
You can get an Uber business account, by the way.
Yeah, absolutely. So there's got to be a way, if hire your kids, if you have them, or your spouse or your girlfriend or whoever as an employee to come and help you prep things. And then you're providing lunch for the business and the employees, like you got to get creative, and you want to work with, whenever I go to a CPA, or whenever I've had a new CPA, I've always asked the question, I'm like, hey, how willing are you to go to prison? And if they're, if they're in on the joke and they're like, yeah. I don't mind. That's kind of CPA I want to do business with.
Yeah, they're either in the favor of their client or the government. There's no in between.
Yeah, exactly. Let's see here. Doesn't Florida have no Kroger physical locations, but has Kroger delivery from a central warehouse? Yes, absolutely. Yes. Any chance Aura's coming to the UK?
Yes. We are approved for all marketplaces, but as it turns out, the reports, some of them are in different languages. So there's a little bit more heavy lifting to get those to work. But yes, that is, I would say, like Walmart, secretive project, Walmart, all 20 marketplaces is like the current order priority right now.
Mm-hmm.
What a tease.
Razcom. Any of you guys follow much of Jim Cockrum? I know of Jim Cockrum. He's been around in the space for a long time. He does talk a lot about replens. I would imagine we have a lot of different ideas, because I don't know that you necessarily go out sourcing replens. Replens are just a byproduct of sourcing.
Yeah, you stumble
more
upon
than
them.
anything else. Yeah.
I think you might be more familiar with the content than you're letting on. Like the term of replens, like and it's not just Cockrum. I'm picking on here, but replens has become a marketing term, Razcom. And it's similar to, how intermittent fasting became a thing, but it's really just not eating breakfast, and I've unknowingly been intermittently fasting since I was 10 years old. They just kind of slap a label on it, and it's easier to sell that way. Anything can be a replen. You don't source replens. The key thing with replens is you need to be managing your own database of leads and inventory, right? You can't just buy something, set your repricer, and then sell out of it, and then just go source new stuff all the time. If you want replens, you need to, and it's worth your time because your database, there's so much valuable information. Like I have a leads list, and I go back through the ones that I've published. All I have to do is go back 6 months. And there's nobody on these listings, and they're still profitable. So I know that the people who have access to my content are not managing their database properly, because there is profit, and that's the name of the game. So replens, if you want a good replen strategy, look out, go explore the courses that you want. I'm not discouraging that, but make sure you have a plan in place to analyze your test buys and analyze the data that you have at your own fingertips. There's gold there.
And by the way, it's just called restocking.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
Exactly.
Very super cool guy. Help, I accidentally sent customers the plus version of a product that comes with freebies while the original doesn't come with it. Am I screwed? In your case, you're probably okay. Now, Amazon terms of service state that the item that you sell must match the product detail page 100%. However, it is the rare Karen or Chad who is going to complain because they got a little bonus item as long as everything else was the same.
Yeah.
So as long as you don't have any complaints, you're going to be okay. If you do get a complaint, you're going to need to show Amazon, hey, you know what? Yes, I made a mistake, but the item they got was exactly the same. It came with this little bonus item. Let's say you're selling a perfume, okay? And the perfume comes with a little travel roller ball, all right? You're like, they got 100 milliliters of perfume, and it came with this little 5 milliliter travel roller ball. That was the only difference. Show that to them. You're probably going to be just fine. Oxjam, how slow does sales velocity get after Q4? I started selling Q4 this year and want to manage my expectations for next year. My product isn't seasonal though. So here's the thing. A lot of people are like, oh, well, demand absolutely falls off a cliff. I don't necessarily believe that. People are buying on Amazon all the time. To the tune of almost $700 billion in sales. In Q4 total retail, not just Amazon, is almost $1 trillion. Okay. But for the rest of the year, it's high. I don't know. 30% is maybe what you're going to see fall off. But it won't be as bad as you think.
Yeah,
Corey, is it against? Yeah.
Unless you're, oh, sorry. Oxjam, unless you're sourcing an abnormally large amount or large percentage of like Christmas stuff, there's nothing to brace yourself against. And even if you are selling Christmas stuff, I go back to our old podcast of how much money I made off of candy canes in February. Like this is right. It's more in our imagination, right? And it's difficult because Amazon is so big. You almost can't expect people to grasp how big that marketplace is. But if somebody in February says, "Hey, you remember those Fruit Loop flavored candy canes? Man, those were good. I can't wait till next year." And they're like, "Well, why don't we check and see if anybody has them?" What are the chances that they sold the exact amount of the supply that they made this year?
Yeah.
You end up on Amazon. Next thing you know, you're selling Fruit Loop flavored candy canes in February. That's because you're gonna steal momentum. That's why I'm saying this. Stuff still sells. Like health and beauty, people still put on makeup. People still wash their hair. Like a medicine cabinet still needs stocked. Come January 1st. Toy chest, there's, Chris mentioned it yesterday. Kids still have birthdays. Like you got to be a pretty big asshole parent to combine Christmas and a January birthday. I mean, come on.
Shots fired.
You know, right. Well, that's the worst. You know, so, and especially if you just started selling in Q4, if you just keep going, you know, and you're deploying your capital responsibly and turning that inventory over at a you know, a respectable business like pace, Q1 is going to be awesome. You know, you're going to be pleasantly surprised, I think.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Yeah. Go. I'll tell you what. Actually, go grab the book if you're a reader. The Long Tail. The Long Tail is a really, really good book. And also, it opens up your eyes as to one, why arbitrage will never die, and two, the power of the Amazon platform, and the reason that we can, you know, charge premium prices for things, and why customers come back. It is for those Fruit Loops flavored candy canes in July. Corey, is it against policy to resell an item of apparel that lost the manufacturer's barcode, say a return, just use an FNSKU instead? In my opinion, I think that would be against Amazon terms of service. Technically, an item in new condition, it has to be like you would get it on the shelf of a retail store. And that would have a tag on it. Like, it would be used, you know, without that tag. Plus, that looks like you're just teeing up a inauthentic complaint, you know, without a manufacturer's tag.
Yeah, it's almost like you know, when I remember when I was reading about first starting to sell books and stuff, you know, like the rigid definition of what you should sell as new, you know, if you even were daring enough to go. You know, you're kind of, you have to plan for the final boss Karen. You know,
Mm-hmm.
it only takes one ultra mega Karen, you know, to set your world on fire. So yeah, they think about, like, you know, packages, you know, if the plastic just starts ripping on the edge, you know, the caution says that's probably like new instead, right?
The only question I have for the final boss Karen is, how does she get her hair that high? That's all I'm curious about.
Flames of contempt.
the beehive like my grandma had.
Right. Dylan, have you watched Rounders yet?
You haven't seen Rounders?
No, we got brought up. So Casey on our team in office hours, he's a big movie buff. So we talk about it every now and then. And Rounders got brought up because I like old school 80s hacker nerdy films. That's my genre. War games. I'm talking weird science, like all of it, right? Sneakers, which is like phone freaking before computer hacking was really a thing. So I love all that, but I've not seen Rounders, and this has been following me on the internet. So I got to watch it at some point.
Don't watch it before bed. It'll get you pumped up.
Right. Luke, in the process of uploading all your leads to CheddarSoft, great work, my man. That's going to be well worth your time.
Can I pause real quick on this concept of the past leads database? Because I've been playing around with this idea of like AI sourcing agents for a while, and it's complicated to build. But Hooky, if you had an Airtable, you could, in theory, use something like Lindy or AutoGrid. There's a few different tools, and if you give it the URL of where you purchased it from, an AI agent can go straight to that web page and update the current price. And then you could say once a day, just go through everything, go get the updated price. Oh, here's the ASIN on Amazon. See where the current buy box is at, and if it matches this criteria, text me. Like that actually wouldn't be that difficult.
Yeah.
Because that's my issue with some of these tools. Like, you should have the database no matter what, but it's a very manual process. So a lot of people just won't go do the work because it's time consuming, or they have a VA do it, which I think is dramatically better than you just not doing it. But you really want those like real time, kind of like what's happening stuff, you know?
Yeah. Like, and that'll really blow the lid off, because even something as simple as getting a coupon code And, whether you get a, say you get the lead list in the morning, you get a coupon code, you have something like Cheddarsoft or some sort of database, you can go back and search that store and see if that code applies, because if you, and here's, I probably should have been tweeting through the past week and a half, but this was basically the Super Bowl of old leads. Black Friday and Cyber Monday, this whole week and a half, because you had so many site-wide sales, and think about all the leads that you've received that maybe didn't have a coupon code or only had a 10% or maybe a fixed dollar amount, 25 off 150 or something like that. Then you had these site-wide sales, where it's 20% off everything, so if you had a way to access your database, I mean, I was in my database multiple times every single day, just because I'd find one thing and then I'd have to go back and look at everything I have from that store, because there was so much money to be made.
Yeah. You could have an agent that basically watches your email, already have this for email management. And you could basically build your own like sales gazer kind of thing where you just sign up for all these things. It'll auto label them so they're out of your way, but be like, hey, if there's ever a 30% discount, email, Slack me, text me, email me, whatever, the company, and then the discount code. And then you could take this a step further and say, and if that's true, go grab all the leads from that source, make sure that the prices are up to date, and then apply that discount to it, and then let me know what's up.
Yeah.
I'm telling you, if I was starting as a seller today, oh my gosh.
That Sales Gazer 2.0 is where you make it an automated, like a hybrid between like what Mild's doing. And you go back and like, hey, this is the lowest price in the last 36 months on this, or, here's this code. And, typically, or, hey, there's a sale coming up. They do this every single year and have for the last 5 years, so you can actually source in advance. Like, whew.
I see Chris thinking over there.
Yeah. We lost him into a creation spiral there for a minute.
Yeah. I'm gonna have to do some messaging after this.
Text me.
Let's see. Here we go. I got a picture of the new puppy. Dylan, how was the puppy?
Did. Good. She was just in here, but my wife just got home and let her out the office. She's good. She has pooped so many times in the house already. Twice today. So that's been lovely. I don't need an alarm clock anymore. So that's good. She wakes me up at like 6 to go out, but she's been good. Golden Retriever, cute pup. Still trying to a lot of like having to manage where she's at. So it's a little exhausting in that way. And my cats are like, what the heck is that creature? So they've been MIA since she got here. But good, very good so far. It's kind of nice to have an animal that wants to cuddle with you.
Right. It doesn't just look at you with
my cats are like, get away from me.
Yeah.
They're like, get away from me and feed me. You know? So it's been really good. I'm pumped.
My wife's cat has resting RBF real bad. Just real bad.
And he's massive, so he's scary,
Yeah. Oxjam. Oxjam got yourself a brand direct deal with an automotive brand. And I'll have a read for the long tail. Good. Great category to be in. Fantastic. People's cars break down all the time. Really, really good category. And something that actually does better in a recession. Now, I'm not inviting a recession. I would prefer to have that. But people repair their cars even more during a recession, change their own oil, etc. So if that happens, well, not if, the next time we have a recession, you will be set up nicely.
Yeah, and that category is seriously slept on. Think about it. There's mandatory maintenance, that needs to be done. There's casual, optional, voluntary, enhancements, decoration. There are all sorts. Think about everything you do with your car in different mindsets. That's a great category.
Absolutely. Jorge, going back to Amazon policy about your product matching 100% to the detail page, what if your product you're selling has an updated package? Is that a no-no? So here's where you're probably going to get a lot of different answers, and they're all going to be opinions, because Amazon does say it needs to meet or needs to match the product listing 100%. So now you need to take into account what's your risk tolerance. Now, for me, let's just say that selling a box of whatever cereal Tony the Tiger's on. I don't know why I can't think of
Frosted Flakes.
Frosted Flakes. Thank you. Selling a box of Frosted Flakes, and they decide to change, Tony the Tiger's kerchief color. Okay, I don't know why they would do that, but if that was the case, that would technically be something that does not match the listing. But I would still sell it because nobody's going to care that a little image got changed on, the box. Now, if the size changes or something like that, and they move from an 18-ounce box to a 17.5-ounce box, and they change the picture, then I'm not going to sell it. That's going to be a much bigger deal. Watched The Buy Now, and it's a crazy documentary about Amazon. I'll have to check that out. I have not heard of that one. All right, guys. I think that's all the questions. Dylan, you've never been on the show. I don't know how often you may tune in. I don't expect you to have ever tuned in and watched us, but we always end the show with a dad joke. So, Chris, Dylan, did you guys know that Mike Tyson is anti-religion?
Really?
No.
Yeah, he always punches people in the face.
That's a fantastic joke.
Man, I heard a good one the other day, and the moment you said that, it completely escaped me. I was like, oh no, I had such a good one. Dad jokes, man, you can't beat them. You just can't.
They're the best. All right, that's it from us, guys. I need to let these guys get back to their families. If you want to get into the Q1 group for free, head over to cleartheshelf.com/Q1. Follow the instructions. I'm going to be giving away a free seat, and I will be back tomorrow solo at 5:30 p.m. to answer your questions and bring you a tip. Little hint, the tips for tomorrow and Friday are both going to be AI based, and they will be helpful. All right, guys.
Yeah.
Thanks so much for hanging out, and we'll see you guys tomorrow.
Thanks, guys.